Hello and welcome to the Simple Game Dev. My name is Remy Storms and this is the first part of the tutorial series on how to create a simple mobile game. Now, I'm going to show you a little bit of the screen of what the game looks like. It's a very simple game in which you control one side of the screen and another player controls another side of the screen. This is for mobile, of course. In this case, it's going to be made for Android only. But it should work on iOS as well. It's just a different process for setting up the iOS developer account. So I decided to go with the Android one because it's way simpler, and simplicity is what we want to show in this channel, right? So this is it. This is the game, and it's basically a simple game in which boxes come from one side of the screen and move towards the other side of the screen, and when they reach this part, the middle part, the box will open, revealing either a bomb or a vegetable that either player can grab. If they grab a vegetable, then the score will increase. If they grab a bomb, they will lose one of the lives. So that's the core mechanic. So let's jump into Unity. I already started a new project, but as you can see, it's empty. It's just an empty project as you would see it if you create a new one. So the first thing we need to do is set up this project to be an Android project. So we have to go to Build Settings, and instead of PC, Macs, and Linux, you have to switch to Android and then click on Switch Platform. Now, if you don't see this Android part here and it says something like package missing, or I don't quite remember how it looks, it means you have to reinstall Unity because you probably did not check that checkbox for Android development. So yeah, if you don't see it, that's probably the reason. So let's switch to Android, switch platform. There it is. Now, since the project doesn't have anything right now, it did it really quickly. And here you have to change the resolution to fit your mobile device in portrait mode. If you have it like this, you probably need to click on this little arrow here. And instead of free aspect, you can choose one of the resolutions that are already here. But the best thing is to create your own based on your device's resolution, pixel size, and all that. So in my case, I'm using a Samsung Galaxy S5. So I'm going to be using this one that I already pre-made. But if you want to make your own, you just click on this plus button and set up the numbers there, either aspect ratio or fixed resolution. Click OK, and that's it. Now the next thing we need to do is start with the very basic setup of what's going to be our box spawner. So if we jump into Photoshop for a second, we see that the crates just move forever in this endless line, right? But what really happens is, I'm going to hide this for a second, is that we have a system in which we have a starting position, a middle position, and an end position. Starting position, it's the point in space where the box is going to be created. Then the middle point is going to be the point in space in which the box will have to move towards. And after it reaches this point, the box will open, will show the contents of it, whether it's a bomb or a vegetable. It will wait for X amount of time, and then it will move to the end position in which it will be destroyed. So here you can see one of the things I always do when designing a game, or pretty much anything really, is just try to think of the smallest pieces of each system. In this case, the spawner and surprise box I divided the action, so to speak, into very simple bullet points. So let's start with the spawner. The spawner, it's going to have 3 points in space. It's going to spawn the surprise box on a specific point and with a specific rotation. So that's all that the spawner is going to be doing. It's going to hold a reference to this point, to this 3 points in space, then it's going to create a box in this specific point, and that's it. That's all it's going to be. Now, on the other hand, we have the surprise box. The surprise box is a little bit more complicated than that, but it's still very simple once you, let's say, separate its actions into the smallest pieces. So let's go to the surprise box. The surprise box has to find the spawner and find the spawner weight and endpoint, in this case the yellow and the red one. It will have to move towards the wait point and wait for X amount of time. It will have to animate, meaning the crate, the box will have to open and show its contents. Then after that, it will have to move towards the endpoint. And then it will have to tell the spawner to spawn the next box. Why is this happening? Because we don't want to keep spawning boxes every frame so that we have an endless line of boxes, right? We want to spawn a box, move it, let that box do its thing, then move to its endpoint, be destroyed, and then start the process again, right? So that's why it has to tell the spawner when to spawn the next box, and after that it will have to destroy itself. Sadly, that's why it's all dead. So now that we know what we're gonna be doing, now we can jump into Unity and start building stuff. So let's move to our Unity and start by following the simple rules that I showed you before. So let's start by creating a new empty game object, and in this case you can call it whatever you want to call it, but it's always good to follow the rules that we created in the beginning. So we called it spawn point, wait point, and end point. So let's call it that way. Spawn point. Let's make a copy. Let's call it wait point. Let's create another one, and we'll call this one end point. Now, if you look at these points, since they're just points in space with a position, a scale, and a rotation, they don't really have anything so that you can see them, right? They have these handles, but only when you have them selected, right? So they can move them around. But if you select something, boom, they disappear completely. So in this case, we want this to be able, we want us to be able to see these points, right? So let's grab the spawn point. Actually change the name because it's a camel casing. And if you click on this little icon over here, you can put this markers, I guess, and they will make your life way easier, because now you can see what that thing is, where is it in space, what the name of the object is, and it still doesn't show in the game screen. So even if I put it right in front of the camera, you won't be able to see it, because this is just for us, the ones that are working on the magic. So that's pretty cool. So let's do the same for the others, and let's keep it consistent with the other colors. Endpoint is going to be, yes, red. That's it. Now we have our 3 points. So that's it. We have the 3 points in space. What's next? Well, give me a second so I can open the file again. So, okay, let's jump back into Unity again. And what we want to do is create a new empty game object, and we're gonna call this spawner. And the spawner, I'm gonna put it in 0, 0, 0. Then put the wait point, the end point, and the spawn point inside the spawner. And we're gonna zero out all this. Reset, reset, reset. So they're all sitting nice and easy in the center of our stage. So in this case, I'm gonna move just a little bit the points. Just round numbers. I like round numbers. So I'm gonna put the end point in 2 and X. Wait point should be at 0, 0, 0. And here, you guessed it right, minus 2. So now you can see those 3 points sitting there. And if you move the spawner, they will move with it because that's the parent. Now the next thing we need to do is start creating some scripts. So let's click on the assets folder, right click on it, create new, where is it? I can't find it. C# script, there it is. And we're gonna call this box spawner. That's gonna be the name of the script. Now, one thing I like to do is keep things organized. So, oops, that was a mistake. So, instead of having all your assets here just floating into mixing and matching with scripts and textures and everything, it's nice to have some folders for organizing your project. In this case, I'm gonna create this new folder and I'm gonna call it scripts. And you guessed it right, we're gonna put our spawner script inside that folder. So now what we need to do is select the spawner and then click and hold the spawner script that we just made and drag it into either the spawner here in the hierarchy panel or here in the inspector. But make sure you have the spawner selected, otherwise you're going to be putting it on something else. So I'm just going to put it here in the hierarchy. And as soon as you let go, you see how the spawner script is attached to the spawner game object. Now we're gonna do very simple scripting, so don't worry about it. It's not gonna be difficult. So let's double click on the spawner script, the box spawner script. And okay, this is the one I already have set up. So I'm going to put it over here. What you need to do is open this guy. That's the one. And this is what you're going to see. It's not empty because Unity already put some classes that it needs and some basic functions like the start and update. Start gets called the first time the object the game starts, and update happens every frame of the game. So in this case, if we take a look at the Photoshop file here, we're just working on the spawner. So again, it will contain a reference to those 3 points of space and spawn the surprise box on a specific point. Okay, so what is this? Let's start with adding. What are we going to be doing here? We're going to be spawning a surprise box, right? So we need a public game object because the box that's going to be spawned, it's going to be a game object, right? So I'm going to call this surprise box. Okay. Then it also requires, if you look again here, it will spawn the surprise box on a specific point, in this case the spawn point. So it needs a reference to that spawn point. And that spawn point is going to be a public transform, if I can type, public transform, and we're going to call that spawn point. There you go. Now, I'm going to add this line of code. It's going to be a public static. Now, if you don't understand that right now, don't worry. Box spawner, I'm going to explain that as we go. And I'm going to call this instance. So what are we doing here? See, this class is called box spawner, and I'm creating a public static instance of this class just so that we can call whatever functions we have here from other scripts without the need to hold a reference to this script. I know it sounds a bit complicated, but don't worry. So just type this instance equals this. There you go. And now we're going to create a public void spawn box. That's going to be our method. And what's going to happen here, as we mentioned before, it's going to create the box and put it in that specific point, right? That's all it's going to be doing. It's going to be creating a box. In this case, it's going to be the surprise box. Is going to put it in that point with a specific rotation. So in order to do that, we have to do this. Spawned box. That's the name of my variable. It's going to be called instantiate surprise box, which is this game object. And the point here, actually Unity tells you exactly what you need to do. So it's telling you it's going to instantiate an object, and it requires an original object, in this case the surprise box, which is a game object. Then the next thing that it's asking you for, it's a vector3 for a position, right? Now if you click on these arrows, or you move with your keyboard, you can see that there are various types of the same function, I guess. But in this case, we're going to use this one because it's the one that requires the position and the rotation, which is the only thing we really need. So spawn point dot position, comma, quaternion dot identity, meaning whatever the original rotation is, that's the one you're going to be putting on the cloned box. And since we haven't told this exactly what it is, we need to specify that it's going to be a game object. That's the type. Game object, and we need to cast it as a game object, right? Now if you look at it, it turned blue. And now we only need something else, right? Spawned box dot transform dot Euler angles equals new vector 3 0 0 0. Okay. So in this case, we are already grabbing the spawn box. It's going to be the clone of the original. And we're accessing the transform to assign a vector 0, meaning whatever rotation you have, I don't care, just set it as 0. This is in case that you have a weird rotation at the beginning. You don't want your crate, your box, to appear like, I don't know, all weird and with a weird angle that wouldn't work, right? So that's it for the scripting. Don't forget to save. And the only thing that we need to do, actually, I think it's been over 10 minutes here, so I'm gonna cut this video and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next video.